So I just saw this video. It was called "You're Not Sexually Liberated, You're 16." Now, I agree with every point in this video, basically. Like, when it comes to... I'm going to boil down the core statement of this video into terms that, to me, are agreeable. Because that's gonna be the main topic of this video, is is presentation and framing. That's gonna be the main thing I want to talk about. So here are the core points of the video. There are many traumatizing things about being a woman in our society. There are creepy old men. There's a constant potential of abuse, either sexually or emotionally. There are expectations that society has of you, and your relationship with your sexuality is made infinitely more complicated by the fact that you are seen by many people as a sexual object. This is like one half of the video is these points, and I agree with all of them perfectly. Right? I think they're all very, very, very reasonable points. Then the other half of the video is basically saying that, hey, look, the internet is a public space. It can't be controlled in the same way that your home or your friend group or even a party could be. The internet is accessible to everyone, even if it's someone you would not even think about in your everyday life. And also that it's impossible to distance the things you do online from your own self and your mental health. This is agreeable, this is perfect for me, right? It's just things that are true. And the conclusions you can draw from it is, hey, if you're a 16-year-old girl, right, you probably should not sexualize yourself, because first of all, being an adult woman is traumatic for all of these reasons. It's complicated for all of these reasons. And if you sexualize yourself, you're just getting into all of this bullshit and all of this bullshit for virtually no gain, right? And this is a great point. I fully agree with it, right? When you're a teenager and you're a normal fucking teenager, right? You're way more likely to get pressured into being sexual online than actually being the type of person who is ready for that. And once you turn 18, right, once you get a bit older, in neutral terms, you are more likely to be able to make those decisions. And the older you are, until you're about 25, because that's the generally agreed upon date when people have almost fully developed. The older you get, the more likely you are to be able to make these decisions responsibly and to navigate all of this bullshit in a way that's healthy for you. Great fucking video. I summarized it in fucking 3 minutes. There's 27 minutes of video, it's 3 minutes of summary. What problem could I possibly have with it? But now I have to address the central fucking problem. I have to address the reason why I deliberately avoided watching this video for fucking days, because I knew how it was going to be framed. I knew that this was not going to be framed in, hey, look, here are some pointers. Hey, look, here are some objective fucking facts about how existing works. And hey, if you're a 16-year-old girl, you don't want to be an adult woman, and here are adult women who tell you exactly why this is something you might not want to be, right? These are all perfect fucking things. But the condescending, the fucking expectation of fucking purity and fucking borderline piety that exists in our culture of commentary makes that fucking impossible, right? You can't just talk to someone who is 16 and frame it as you talking to someone who you see as a person and who you see as an equal. What you have to do is frame it as you making a moral statement. You have to string together a series of anecdotes in order to make a moral point, in order to form a connection with your fucking audience. But this is not fucking necessary. This is a cancer upon our fucking culture. People should not be expected to frame things in terms of reverence and fucking purity and all of this fucking moralistic fucking garbage. Now, are morals inherently bad? I wouldn't say that. Morals can be good. They serve a purpose. I'm not here to be like, oh, give up all of your morals and be a degenerate fuck like me. That's not what I'm saying. What I am saying is that while watching this video, I saw the presenter constantly go back and forth between basically realizing that she was not making a statement that was moral enough to her realizing that she needs to actually find that connection in order to be useful in the things that she's trying to present. This is a fucking issue, right? Because if she had just made this video in a way that was just reasonable, it would have gotten maybe 1% of its fucking views. Because this is what people want. This is what people want fed them. People want moralism. People want to see fucking something being torn down. People want to see some critique on a moral basis. I fucking hate this. This is not an issue with the presenter. The presenter did the best job she possibly could in order to reach the audience that she has. And this is the part that makes me fucking mad. I can't critique the video. I wish I could come here and offer my criticisms of the way that she presented herself. I wish I could come here and tell you, hey, in the future, these are the problems with this type of presentation. The moral impetus disconnects your fucking personal experience from the reality that other people will replicate. Your fucking general statements need to be clarified because they are always bordering on being moral statements, universal fucking statements. I wish I could go up to her and be like, hey, you made a fucking great video. I love how you had nuance, but here's some other fucking things you could improve. Right? I wish I could tell her that there are things that she could improve, but she can't, because this is what we fucking expect as a society. It's not that we only force 16-year-old girls to sexualize themselves for attention. That's fucking garbage. That's bad. Of course it's fucking awful. But also, we completely prevent those people from realistically and in a connected way reflecting on their fucking situation, because we need to frame everything in these fucking moral terms that are so fucking nebulous and vague and that only connect with you once it's too late. This is the issue. This is the issue with this fucking framing. If I had watched this video when I was 16, there are two conclusions I could have come to, right? The first conclusion is just ignoring it. But if it made an impact on me when I was 16, so what are the conclusions that I might have come to? One, I should feel guilty for having a sexuality and having sexual partners that are older than me. This was not a problem for me growing up. I was completely fine being with older people when I was 16. I had abusive experiences, but those were with people who were my age, right? Of course, you roll the dice, right? The dice get fucking weighted way less in your favor when you are with someone older. That's true. But this moralistic framing at the time would have just made me be like, oh, I should be guilty about the way I live my life. Oh, I should feel like I'm doing something morally wrong by not being able to be a child at the age at which that was not possible for me anymore. That's one conclusion I could have come to, is that I am morally wrong for growing up too fast and having relationships with people who are older than me because, oh, I'm just subjecting myself to abuse, even though, again, the relationship, I have discussed this in a fuck ton of videos, the relationship was not abusive, it was just a fucking normal teenage fucking trauma-filled relationship, even though it was with someone who was older than me, right? Not by like fucking 10 years. But the second part, this is the reaction that would have been even fucking worse for me. If this video actually made me fucking think that I should fucking try to be someone else, right? If I didn't just feel guilt, if I didn't just have the same reaction I had to a lot of things growing up, because all of these moralistic things are designed to make you feel guilty about some things that you are, or some things that you do. And since everyone has a different interpretation, everyone's always going to make you feel guilty if you are prone to taking things to heart in that way. But there were some moralistic statements that made me change as a person. And he always made me change in a misguided way. Again, I've talked about this a million fucking times, I'm not going to go into it again. But thinking about how this video could have affected me, right? It wouldn't have been, hey, because I was not sexualizing myself too much, right? I was not necessarily caught in these specific cycles that they were describing, because I was not on Instagram, I was not on TikTok, I was just mostly talking to people in private, right? But it would have made me go, it could have made me go like, hey, what if I just try being a kid, right? And this is the fucking core problem. Childhood is incredibly traumatic for a lot of people. Some people get a lot out of being children, right? Some people are immensely better off being 16 and not being expected to perform adult fucking social roles and so on and so on and so on and so on. But being a child was always traumatic for me. I am not susceptible to being subject to other people, and that's always expected of you when you're a child, right? If I was like, hey, yeah, I should just stop trying to grow up as fast as I was trying. I should just get along with my parents and my teachers and so on and so on and so on. I would have been fucking miserable, because the terms of engagement for me as a child were irreconcilable with my wants and desires, right? Childhood is fucking awful for a lot of people. Childhood is not something that you want to have when you're a person who can't have it, you know. And this type of promotion, right, in moral terms, right, again, because practically I agree with it. Most people can have perfectly fine childhoods, right? Maybe not most people, maybe like 40% of people. But there's a significant contingent of people who could have perfectly fine childhoods, right? And that contingent of people would benefit from hearing this. But there's also a bunch of people who can't have that for reasons that are beyond their control. And there are a bunch of people who don't even want to have anything like that, you know. So it's like, by putting this into moral terms, you completely erase the distinctions that actually make this possibly impossible every day. I don't fucking know, I just hate moral, faggot, and fuck. Yo, what's up, what's up? So this is something that I've been talking about for a while, I've been thinking about for a while, and I have to get to my fucking gay party in like 2 hours, so I thought, hey, I'm just quickly gonna bang out a video on this fucking topic and get my fucking thoughts in one place, put them out into the world, and have a fucking video. So let's talk about the starving artist, right? You probably want to be one. You probably have at some point in your life been like, oh, you know what would be really cool? Being broke in a shitty apartment, spending all day working, and then you've been like, oh fuck, I'm so unhappy in my privileged middle class fucking stagnation, right? This is horrible. I wish I was fucking starving right now. If you look around, you can see that I'm currently in a comfortable middle-class apartment, living a comfortable middle-class lifestyle. It was not always this way. I've been the starving artist. I've been in a fucking apartment that I was way too depressed to maintain, living alone at fucking 15 years old, and I spent all day writing. I didn't do anything else. I just basically wrote and then talked to people on Discord. That was fucking it. Never did anything fun, basically. Never went outside. I just suffered. When it was winter, it was so fucking cold, my hands were freezing, I could barely fucking type. I still wrote fucking text anyway, because that was what I did. And I'm gonna be honest, I miss that, right? I miss being that person in that place. But also, I prefer being here. I would not want to go back to the way that things were during that time in my life. So let's talk about Charles Bukowski. Right? There's this famous fucking anecdote like, oh, it's fine if you're not an early bloomer, right? Charles Bukowski did not get famous until he was 50 years old. Now, the thing with Charles Bukowski is that his entire personality, and I say this as a massive Bukowski fan, Bukowski is probably my favorite writer of all time. But Bukowski's personality and conditions are mostly manufactured. Now, this is very obvious when you look at his later work, where he assumes this image of a hyper masculine, super, like, filthy, I guess, person, which is definitely not true to the way he actually lived. Because this is the thing with Charles Bukowski. This is the thing that he will tell you over and over again. He always lived a very fucking boring life. When you think about Charles Bukowski, don't think about yourself, right? Don't think about being a cool young artist, right? Being like, oh, I'm just gonna make it, and if I keep going, I'll make it when I'm 50 years old, like Charles Bukowski. Think about the kid you went to school with who was like kinda weird and who just was kind of a boring person but tried really hard to be interesting. And that's Charles Bukowski. Now, luckily for Bukowski, he had a very interesting life and he was a phenomenal writer. He was a writer with, with an aptitude for the spoken language that's borderline unparalleled in my experience, right? Bukowski could write in a way that compels me beyond anything else I've ever read because he was good at it. But as a person, he was not this larger than life interesting person. He worked at the post office and he was an alcoholic. That's not a glamorous existence. That's not an existence that you want to replicate. Rather, it's the way that most people live. And the thing with Bukowski is that eventually he started making money from being a writer. And that's it, that's all. So what the fuck do I mean by all of this? Why am I saying young toads might? Well, you know people who like Bukowski, and you know people who like the way he projects his personality, even though it's always tongue-in-cheek, you know, so and so and so. But there are plenty of people who are really drawn to the personality that Bukowski projects, right? That's entire meme, that's entire joke of like, oh, red flag books, like, oh, don't date the guy who likes Bukowski, right? Because there's always the possibility that instead of appreciating his literature, the guy will take Bukowski as a serious character to emulate. Because he's the cool guy, he's the larger-than-life starving artist, he's the person who's important because he is destitute, right? The appeal, the cult following of Bukowski is inherently connected to this idea that destitution, that living a dead-end life with interesting events in that life, but nevertheless a life that is functioning, a dead-end life, that's venerable, that's admirable, because that's the condition that most people find themselves in. So, you're a young artist, right? You want to be the starving artist. You don't get what the fuck I've just been telling you. You think, hey, I should be a fucking starving artist. It's gonna be a fun fucking time. It's gonna be a fun time. I'm not gonna say it's not gonna be a fun time, but it's not a glorious time. It's not a time that you would find interesting while it's happening, right? Because the truth about Bukowski, the truth about us as artists, is that being an artist is really fucking boring. Being an artist who doesn't have money is even more fucking boring. Here are things that my time was mostly spent on when I was the starving fucking artist. I spent a shit ton of time hating myself. I didn't get enough ton. I needed to start making money. I spent fucking so much time trying to save money, right? I spent so much time trying to see, oh hey, how can I save some more money, right? I spent time dealing with my own mental health issues that I did not have a support network for, and I did not have any way to deal with or categorize with them. I mean, that ties to the first point, but who the fuck cares? I didn't spend time enjoying art. That's the important part. Consuming art became a part of the job now. This is a good attitude to have if you're an artist, right? Because consuming art is a part of making art, in my opinion. But when you're not making money, you don't want art to be a job, right? That's ultimately the point. I'm trying to make it fucking all of this fucking bullshit. You don't want to have a job that destroys everything you love and not even make money from it. That's the important part. So what about the artist as a marketing demographic, right? Now that we've established that, oh hey, destitution isn't that fun, we have to acknowledge that most... Oh, fuck it. I have always disliked the British flag. I don't know where I saw it first. It's probably in a book much like this one. Not this exact book, but I remember distinctly seeing the British flag. And I remember tracing my fingers through it, trying to figure out why it would look like that. Why it would be so asymmetrical and just look like complete nonsense. Now, when I got older, I tried to assemble the British flag myself on my computer, and what I quickly found out is that that's just how the lines go if you use like straight lines. And you have to use specifically, here's the picture that I'm gonna talk about. You have to, if you want the flag to look like it should, right, you have to cut out these middle sections basically, and they don't connect with each other, right? If you trace the lines, you can see that they would miss the trajectory where they were supposed to meet. So if you want straight lines into a red X, you have to have a really shitty looking flag. And this is a contradiction that I can never resolve, because the desire for order creates its own disorder, and so on and so on and so on. But my dad sent me this image today, and was like, hey, how do you remember the British flag being? My dad was like, hey, apparently there's a Mandela effect thing going on with the British flag. Which is the right, which one is the right one? And I was like, of course it's a 2, because I remember always being pissed off at the fucking British flag. I've always thought it should look like 1, but after actually fucking around with it, I've just realized that that's not really tenable, right? Because it just doesn't work in with the same principles as the number 2 one works. And it's always annoyed me. It's always annoyed me a lot. And that's the core of the Mandela effect, like in a certain way, because it's the desire for people, or rather, it's a desire for things to make sense, right? It's a desire for the world to work in a supernaturally organized way. Because you can't have a British flag that looks like this, right? That it doesn't work with cloth. But once you see the digital representation of the flag, it starts working a lot better. And I don't think this is the right one either. How does the British flag really look like? Oh no, that's the right one. Yeah, I guess it's just fucking horrible. Because you see, the introduction of a straight line through the middle in the form of this line makes the second line especially disjointed if the flag is to have any type of symmetry, right? It's all just garbage. The constraint of putting a cross on a shape that can't facilitate every single cross is just insurmountable, right? You can't really have three crosses in one fucking flag. Like, the dimensions of the thing just don't allow for it. And so you get this fucking horrible flag. But here's the thing with people. People always want things to be better. We're not satisfied with the fucking real British flag. We want a virtual British flag. We want a British flag that works the way it's supposed to work. Where you have three crosses and they all make sense and they all work. And that's really the worst part of being a human. You can't really have a British flag with three crosses, right? But this reminds me of a Tom Scott video because it's a video I always think about when I think about the Mandela effect. Because to me, this is just the best way to explain like how these ideas can spread, right? How these things aren't just coincidences. Because this is a thing that a lot of people think about the Mandela effect. It's just humans making rational coincidences in interpreting information, and since these rather people making leaps in logic, they're not based on empirical evidence but make sense, right? And since these leaps in logic make sense to a lot of people will make the same leaps in logic, right? And that's the thing with the Mandela effect that a lot of people say. But there's this Tom Scott video, right? It's called I asked like 70,000 people about Jingle Bells Batman smells, right? And it's a really good video, right? It's a really informative video, and it extrapolates on a trend that I think is interesting, which is the idea of structure forming in these knowledge networks, even without the need for an internet, right? Because before the World Wide Web, right, people still communicated and information still spread, even across continents, right? Even across amounts of land that no people, or rather no large groups of people could travel, but information still did, right? Because you taught your neighbor something, right? Your neighbor moved to the other side of the country and then taught their neighbor. Then that neighbor moved 2 blocks away and taught other people. And that person moved a city away and taught other people. And so this information just spreads, right? And this was the example that Tom Scott used as studies was a researcher who was looking into fucking playground games, right? And what they discovered was that children's games spread across really vast distances of land, right? Like, even though they're children, they have formed this culture, right? Where information is transmitted and where knowledge spreads, even across continents, right? It's really fascinating. And what's the most interesting about this all is that it's completely organic. There's no need for some newspaper to print something. There's no need for uh, people to be on the same social media site. If you just put enough people near each other, you end up with information spreading and you end up with knowledge, right? So even though the British flag looks like this, right? And even though this is practically the best looking way to mass produce a British flag, people have drawn it wrong, right? I don't see the example here, but when I looked it up before, Let's use Britannic, I think, because that had the wrong image I saw earlier. Uh, I don't know exactly, but when I googled this before, one of the first results, I don't remember what terms I used exactly, was the wrong British flag. Let's see if I can UK flag. Does that work? I can't find it right now, but when I googled this before, oh, here's an example. No, this is a bad one. It's just slightly off kilter. Okay, so when I searched on DuckDuckGo, one of the first examples for UK flag was this image, right, which has the aligned center cross, and the fourth example was also one of these ones that are incorrect, right? And all of stylized versions of the flag have the cross just go through the middle the way it makes sense. And I found one on Google too, even though I couldn't find the one that I was looking at previously. Uh, it wasn't. It wasn't this one. Fuck! I lost it again. But there was another stylized one that had the cross go through the middle. Right. People are always going to represent things in a way that makes more sense, right? And when enough people represent the UK flag in the more, look, here's another one, even though it's really badly made. But there's a bunch of examples, right? It's not just that the people who have this Mandela effect interpret the UK flag wrong, right? It's not just that people think that, oh, the UK flag should be better. It's that people have represented this flag in a way that makes it look better, right? And it's a common thing. It's a common thing. It's basically what I'm trying to show. So if you have interpreted the flag wrong, and if you've seen representations of it that are incorrect, the only conclusion that you're left with, right, is that the flag must have been right in an alternate reality, right? It's not just that people are searching for perfection in a world that doesn't work like that, right? It's not just that the British flag as it is right now is the most aesthetically pleasant representation that is easy to produce in a mass scale and propagate in every single fucking building, right? It's not just that this is the best possible configuration with its obvious imperfections. It's that people have created a more perfect vision, and they've spread that vision until it can overlap with reality, until the way that people perceive the British flag can better match the way that the British flag should be for them. And this goes for like most Mandela effect things. Like if someone comes to the conclusion that Nelson Mandela died, right, they're probably gonna talk to people about it at some point. And this is the most evident with like the Berenstain Bears Mandela effect, right? Because the way that people think it should be spelled is the way that most Jewish names are spelled. I think it's with an E. I'm not quite sure. But since most people think it should be spelled that way, there's this anecdote I read where a teacher marked down a kid because they spelled Berenstain Bears correctly, right? They spelled it Berenstein, not Berenstain. And the teacher was like, no, this is wrong. And they marked the kid down because it was so expected that the name should be spelled in the most common variant, that information spread and was reaffirmed by people. And the same goes for like all of these misconceptions, right? Every single Mandela effect isn't just a rational mistake that someone can make, right? It's not just memory being imperfect. It's that people communicate and information spreads, and there's no way to avoid this, right? And this has to end up with these contradictions. It has to end up with these false images that represent some real misconceptions, right? The perfect unreality becomes the reality, right? There's no escaping it. People will always communicate a world that makes more sense. That's the limitation of communication. So, my personal history with World of Warcraft goes back to when I was about 11. When I was reading this magazine, like a gaming magazine, we got home, they had like a whole story about Wrath. Now, I could never play the games that were in the magazine, but I really liked just reading the articles about them, seeing what they were about. And when I saw Wrath, that was like the sickest shit ever to me. But I never had the money to buy the game, buy the expansions, pay the sub. Like, that was just unthinkable for me. Like, for most of my life, even. But as time went on, I started having more money, I started having a good computer, and at this point, I'm playing Final Fantasy, right, 14, which, probably runs about as well as WoW would, right. I'm not gonna assume there's like some giant difference. Now, I did get the FF14 on sale for really fucking cheap. So, like, I'm not paying full price for the game, but I'm still paying my sub. I could afford to have paid full price, right? And it is how it is. But still, even though I could play WoW now, and even though throughout my entire life, right, I've wanted to play WoW, right? I remember being a kid and hearing people talk about World of Warcraft, and I was always like, fuck, I wish I could be playing this game. Like, not just a kid even. Like, this lasted until I was like 16, I think, where I constantly just kind of wanted to play World of Warcraft. But there never seemed to be a great time. And then Classic came out, and I started playing Classic for one day. And the launch was so fucking chaotic that I couldn't really, like, get into it. Like, I didn't have the nostalgia for Classic. And now that Burning Crusade came out, I'm not gonna be able to fucking do that, because, well, I didn't play through Classic, and it just generally doesn't seem worth it, with like the fucking store mounts and the boosts and all of that. So it's like all of these catch-up mechanics that could have benefited a person like me, right, just completely turned me off the game. Because if I use them, I just won't get the experience. And it just sucks, because like catching up would have been hard, but at least it might have meant something, Anyway, I'm not gonna play WoW. It's just not gonna happen as it is right now. And that's the topic of the video, because I've been watching so many World of Warcraft discussion videos, like from like Asmongold and Bellular, that I have formulated a clear picture of what it would take for me to get into the game. And I've watched like other videos too, like not just those two people. Like, I know exactly what it would take. So this video is kind of my idea of how to get me to play WoW, as someone who has always wanted to, but who has never been able to before the game got fucking garbage. So what I'm imagining goes something like this. 9.0 ends or Shadowlands ends, and this story is fucking finished. For whatever reason, right, all the lore threads that have been established culminate in some big fucking thing of Sylvanas, and the storyline that the players have been following for fucking almost 20 years now fucking ends. It's like 2022. And they announce that 10.0 will be like the big fucking like reveal of like fucking all the things that were happening behind the scenes, right, so on, so on, so on. And it's like, okay, look, your story is over, right, this like entire Sylvanas arc is fucking over. The entire like narrative with the Lich King, right, that was established in like Warcraft 3, like that's gonna fucking end. World of Warcraft has a fucking ending date, and it's just before 10.0 comes out, right? The pre-patch is the final chapter in the World of Warcraft story, right? And I would be interested, right? Because it's like, I've been casually observing this story for my fucking whole life, right? I've played Hearthstone, I've spent hours on the World of Warcraft wiki, right? Like, this is something I have a type of connection with, and it's gonna be over. Oh, that's neat, that's neat. So, the story fucking ends, right? It's wrapped up in a satisfying way, but it's not really over, right? Because World of Warcraft has all of these like cosmic foreshadowing fucking bullshit things happening, right? But it doesn't fucking matter. 10.0 is gonna come out. It's gonna be a new thing, right? It's gonna wrap up the old thing. It's gonna be a new thing all in itself, right? And so what we find out as a species is that in 10.0, everyone is reset back to level 1, right? Every single World of Warcraft player logs in, and they just start in like the original starting zone. They're level 1, they have no gear, they have no mounts, right? All of their items are converted into like fucking achievements, right? Just an example. Or they could be like some whatever the fuck thing, right? It's just, if you have like some amount of achievements, you get some achievement. If you have like a rare item, you'll get like a title, right? But your actual items are gone. Your actual mounts are still accessible, but you have to be in like some special place to do it, right? You have to be in like the nexus of time or whatever the fuck to have like all of your things that you had previously. But it's a new fucking thing. Oh, how could you wipe so much of the game's history, though, Smite? Here's the thing. WoW already does this, right? Like when a patch is about to end, like this bothers me. Like when it comes to like, getting into it, like a bunch of mounts are discontinued, right? A bunch of items are just immediately not relevant anymore, other than for like cosmetic purposes, right? And you can still do that. You can still do transmogs, right? You can still do transmogs, but you have to have like some special fucking place or special fucking thing to be able to use your previous items as transmogs. So everyone's on equal ground, well, quote unquote equal ground, and you can just come into the game and you'll be a new adventurer, because this is what you find out. It's now been like 100 fucking years since the original World of Warcraft story, right? It's been an entire fucking century since whatever the big thing that happened, right? And the world has been fundamentally changed. But not in a way that alienates people, right? But rather, it's been changed in a bunch of these weird tiny ways, right? Like, you know the place where you get the Scarab Lord mount, like in the fucking desert? I haven't actually played, I don't know the name. But the place where you get the Scarab Lord mount, right? You can go there, right? And you can see fucking the Scarabs. The event is happening. It's constantly fucking happening. It should have been over like 120 years ago, or however the fucking timeline works in game. But it's fucking happening all the fucking time. You can just go basically do the event, right? Of course you can't get the Scarab Lord and the fucking whatever the fuck thing is opened, right? The raid or whatever you have. But there's like the thing's still happening. It's like, oh, this is odd. And you can just go do that quest line if you want to, right? You can go grind out the fucking Scarab pieces, right? And you can get some rewards for it, right? You can level doing that. But it's not really like important. And you can go to the fucking Burning Crusade dimension. You can go through the fucking portal, right? And you can go explore the entire fucking landscape of the Burning Crusade and expansion, right? And you can be like, oh fuck. That's really cool, right? You can go back to the old places, right? And there are new people you talk to, there are new quests you do. But you have like all the fucking things. And like if you want to go to like the fucking Pandaria, right? You can go to fucking Pandaria. You can go fuck around, chill out with the pandas, do like original content, right? You can do archaeology. But you wouldn't be discovering some old relics or whatever the fuck. You would be discovering shit left behind by like the generation of adventurers who populated this world 100 years ago, right? And this is all really intriguing, right? You can go to the fucking place where the fucking big sword is in the landscape. I don't know exactly what's up with that, but like, who the fuck cares? Everything's wacky. You can go to the fucking big sword and you can be like, oh fuck, there's like a cool cinematic. You just see the fucking big sword all rusty and shit, right? And you're like, oh fuck. Even weirder, there's a new Lich King, but he looks suspiciously like the old fucking Lich King, right? It's like, oh, all of these things are happening, right? And then you have like fucking massive battles, right? Implied, of course, because you can't actually like represent a massive battle in a game. But you have all of these implied massive battles going on between the Horde and the Alliance. And it's like, what the fuck happened? So you go through the world, right? You go through all the old zones, right? You get to like Shadowlands, right? You somehow go into the Shadowlands, right? And just see how things have changed there, even though I don't think many people care about the Shadowlands all too much. It doesn't fucking matter. You can still go to the fucking Shadowlands and see how things have changed there, right? And what you discover more and more is that the old adventurers are remembered and appreciated, right? When you do like the Scarab fucking mini game or whatever the fuck, you have people talking like, oh, this happened 100 years ago too, but then we had all of these adventurers who suppressed this threat. You go to the Lich King place, like the fucking frozen land, right? And people go like, oh fuck, we have spent the last 50 years under the fucking command of the Lich King. We sure wish that these adventurers were still around. You go to the fucking big sword and it's revealed that like fucking oh, here's why the players were important, right? And you see all of these relics that are like worshipped, right? You see like some particularly cool set of armor, right, in some fucking vault or throne room or whatever the fuck, like some lore relevant place. And it's like fucking in the center of it. And it's like this is like the fucking this is a altar to a fucking brave adventurer or whatever the fuck. It doesn't really matter how exactly it works. But you have all of these signs that the things that happened before mattered, right? That all of these things that the players did actually like fucking made the world different, right? And you can go to like fucking battle for Azeroth Islands, right? You can sail around in a ship, right? That would be cool. You can make your own ship, you can sail around in it, and you can go to old islands and see like signs of battle or whatever the fuck, right? And it's like these islands haven't been touched since that happened, right? And they were forever altered by the events of that expansion, right? You see how, like, I don't know, like, there's Necro Deathwing now. Deathwing has been reanimated again, and you have, like, double undead Deathwing or whatever the fuck, right? And it's, like, fucking almost killing the entire world regularly. Like, every 5 years, Deathwing comes back and wipes out fucking 50% of the population, right? And you have all of these really cool things, right? You have old gods fucking manifesting through the fucking core of Azeroth or whatever the fuck the game has. Because I forget the exact details of everything, but like the point is that you have all of these old things that are happening again. And all the dungeons you run, right? All the dungeons you run aren't actually new dungeons, but they're old dungeons, they're old raids that have been turned into dungeons, right? Like, oh, you cleared the raids, but there are new fucking things in these, like, raid areas, and now you have to fight those. And you have, like, cool dungeons where you just go through old environments with, like, some minor modifications. Like, oh, this used to be a factory, but everything has stopped now. Or, oh, this used to be like a grand cathedral, but now it has fallen into ruin, right? So you have all of these old areas, you have all of these fucking cool things remade to fit the new era, right? Like, and you get to go through it all, right? And everywhere you go, people are talking about the past. and what has happened in the last 100 years, and how nothing important has been solved since the adventurers disappeared. So you go through all of this shit, right? You level doing old things, you go through old dungeons and raids, right? And you have like this leveling experience where you go like organically from the vanilla areas to the Burning Crusade areas, because that's where the next content is, to the Wrath of the Lich King areas, to the fucking Cataclysm areas, to all of these areas, right? You just organically run to those dungeons, right? You do quests in those areas, and it lasts for like 200 hours. You have like 200 hours of just making your way through like every expansion and going through like the major beats of that expansion, right? And if you want, you can engage with the lore, right? Hear about the old adventurers, right? You can hear about like how fucking stagnant the world has been. Like it's borderline dark fantasy at this point, right? And then you get to the fucking uh, level cap, or you start approaching the level cap, and everything begins to unravel, right? Like various clues that have been dropped throughout the entire uh, fucking expansion start to unravel, right? And you find out why the adventurers disappeared, right? You find out about all of these metaphysics that have been like hidden, right? Uh, you have like through the expansion you've had characters explained to you in really overt ways that you wouldn't have before, because now you have like hindsight on behalf of the world, right? You have everything being explained to you. You have a full understanding of the world, and even beyond the understanding that people who have played WoW for like 20 years would have. Although, of course, they have a more intimate context, right? So for them, these revelations would all be impactful. But for a new player, for me, for you, these revelations would be like, oh, this is just the lore of the world. And then you go through Shadowlands, you get to the site of the final climactic battle, right? And it's revealed that all of these cosmic forces have just like fucking killed every single adventurer at that point in time, right? You find out that the world of Azeroth was being protected not only by all of the fucking giant things, but primarily by all the adventurers working to protect Azeroth, right? It's not just that these fucking heroes protected the realm, but that the real heart of Azeroth were the players. And the players one day just disappeared, right? And the world has fallen into ruin, right? The fucking old gods have done some fucking bullshit, right? And now the world can't go anywhere anymore. And it's revealed that there's this one big bad guy, right? There's this one big bad guy who's like a low level bad guy, right? He's not like fucking some elder god, right? But he's like some fucking really powerful wizard or whatever the fuck, and he now rules most of Azeroth. And he has created a world that's a replica of how it used to be, basically. Like, he has created like a war, like an artificial war between the Horde and the Alliance, when the original people fighting it have fucking disappeared for like fucking 100 years. And he's been fucking creating illusions of like old fucking bosses, which is why like you can go through a dungeon and you can see like someone who used to be really powerful, right? And you can beat him. Like it's this one bad guy. The bad guy himself doesn't matter because he's not the real villain of the story. The real villain of the story is the fucking big event that happened. But now you have to go fucking through this raid, right? And beat the fucking bad guy. And once the new patch comes out, everything changes again, right? Because the bad guy is gone, and all the content that has been around for like fucking 20 years is like fucking revamped again. Like not in a substantial way, but like you can see like small aesthetic differences, right? You can see like, oh, this boss was an illusion. It's not so illusory anymore, right? Like, it's like, oh, the world is fucking warping, the world is fucking changing, right? Something fucking big is happening, right? Because the moment this guy disappeared, you had a bigger fucking threat, right? The half transparent fucking boss at the end of a dungeon is now not transparent, right? Just tiny things, just really fucking tiny things. And maybe in like some fucking old factory, the fucking lines start moving again. It doesn't fucking matter what happens. But what you eventually find out during this next patch is that the world is reconfiguring itself for some reason into an older state, right? And now you can do like old raids. Like you can do some of them, like three really memorable ones maybe. You can fucking go and kill Ragnarus, and you can go and do this other thing and that other thing, right? It doesn't really matter. And then when you've killed all of those things, like the real story starts. And some fucking satisfying revelations are made. I won't know how to make them, but it's like you just have an excuse to revisit the old shit, recontextualize it, just put new things in the game as you want, have the entire map to like explore and experience, and you can just fucking have fun. Like there wouldn't be like shitty mechanics or storm mounts or whatever the fuck, right? It would be a completely new blank slate where everyone can have fun and play the modern game, but with just better fucking more player friendly design. And you can just go like, oh shit. And then eventually you find out something big, and 11.0 comes out. And now 11.0 is a completely new story. And you keep all of your previous progress, right? You have a new level cap, you have new gear, but nothing you made before got invalidated, right? And all the old content is still like playable. You can sink down, play, just fucking actually enjoy the game. And so on and so on and so on and so on. Right? You can just have a fresh fucking start, and you can have the best parts of like old stuff and new stuff, and you can just make cool things happen in any way you want because the world is fucking changing. The world is traveling through time for some fucking reason, right? And you have all of this fucking cool shit you could do. That's how you would get me to play WoW. Like, I wouldn't play in 10.0 probably, but when like 10.1 comes out and it's like, oh, you get to go fucking fight Ragnarus now. You get to fucking beat the Lich King. You get to fucking do all of these cool things. I'd be like, oh fuck. I've always wanted to do those things. And oh, the leveling experience is just learning the lore of the game. That's fucking dope. I would play the fucking shit out of World of Warcraft. I would fucking lose my life to the game. It would be a fucking great time. It's never gonna happen. This is never gonna fucking happen. But that would be my fucking ideal World of the Warcraft fucking rework. I often have political arguments with left-wing people. Now, I don't talk to people who I can't respect, so these are generally relatively civil. But there are a few things about politics that my opinions have been very controversial on. The first one of these is money. The thing with money is that I think it's good. I think money is a useful tool. Doubt smite, how can you think money is a useful tool? Look how money distorts the relationships between humans. Look at how money incentivizes ecologically destructive behavior. Look at all of these very obvious problems with money. Sure, these are all true. I'm not saying that these are not issues. I'm not saying that these are not problems with money. However, what I'm saying is that the money itself is not a problem. Even if you're the type of person who does not support money aside from maybe luxury goods, right? You can have money for luxury goods, but everything else should be completely moneyless. Okay, how are you going to organize it? You might be a statist, you might be a Leninist or something, and you should be like, oh, yeah, the state has a 5-year plan, that's how we manage everything that isn't luxury goods. That's fair, but how do you organize it? Do you just think really hard and then figure out the best plan possible? Historically, that hasn't been a great play. Historically, that has mostly led to relatively poor economic results. So why not use something, maybe some tool that can provide an automatic mechanism that can very overtly tell you which things you should be prioritizing? What if you use a tool that's specifically designed to uh, basically just tell you what's the thing that people need the most? So okay. Let's not call it money. Let's not call it money. Let's say everyone has. Let's talk about the energy consumption because that's going to be really easy to talk about. So, in regards to energy consumption, uh, there's the entire problem with energy storage that large scale infrastructure is running more and more into. You know the whole. I don't know if you know, but there was the article about why renewable energy wasn't sustainable because sometimes you had such an overabundance of renewable energy that the price was negative. Now, of course, this was taken out of context, this was taken to make arguments that you can't really infer from it. However, it does raise a really good point because energy consumption is notoriously unstable, right? You can't have a equilibrium of energy supply and energy demand without any problems, right? You need to solve the problem, right? And one really easy way to solve the problem is by using money, as this example implied, right? Again, there are problems with that, but those problems are caused by capitalism, right? If the price of energy becomes negative under a socialist society, that would just be a benefit to everyone, right? That wouldn't be bad because if these types of property are owned and operated by the community, then it doesn't matter if you make a profit or if you get free energy. These two are interchangeable fundamentally. And that's the thing with money. It's useful for organizing. Capitalism is not useful for organizing. Because imagine the two following socialist societies now to bring my arguments together, right? These two are running into the same problem of, hey, how do we manage and distribute energy? The first society is completely moneyless. The second society is not completely moneyless. The first society decides and looks at the world around them and decides, hey, what we should do for environmental purposes, right, is we should be building large flywheel-based batteries, right, because they are more ecologically sustainable than lithium-ion batteries or water reservoir batteries, right? So they build their giant flywheels to save energy because that's the most ecologically beneficial process, right? But during this process, right, you have all the mining you have to do, you have all the labor you have to sink into the flywheels, you have all the other processes you have to do, right? And but you have eventually flywheel-based batteries, right? And then you have the second community. Now this is ripped straight off the fucking video I just saw a bit ago last night, actually. So it's not really I just saw, but this is the video I watched last night. I fucking forget this guy's name. This should get me the video. No. Okay, technology connections. So he made this video. I didn't finish it because I got the point like a minute in, and then he just kept explaining, and I was like, oh fuck, I stopped caring. But he made this video called "Batteries Aren't the Only Way to Store Energy." Here's another, and the video basically talks about cycling your energy consumption, right? That he can save money if he uses his air conditioner during the night and then just keeps his windows closed during the day. So the company that provides air conditioning to him, right, gives him discounted rates during the night because that's when there's the least demand, right? So it's beneficial for everyone to have this organized form of energy consumption, right? So how would you coordinate this possibly? And that's a great example of how you would coordinate it, right? You give a financial incentive to use your air conditioner during the night so your house can be cool during the day, right? Now, of course, the stakes under capitalism are if you don't save money, you're not going to eat. This is not acceptable. This is not what I'm saying that should happen. But what I am saying should happen is, hey, if you use your air conditioner during the night, maybe you can have, I don't know, like a fucking steak. Maybe you can have one of the limited supplies of steak available. Maybe if you use your air conditioner during the night, you can have the fucking Yeezys. You can have the Yeezys if you use your air conditioner during the night, right? Things like this, right? That aren't really luxury goods, but are definitely lifestyle goods that are not completely necessary, you know? And this is why I think that money is useful. And I think it's useful in the case of most goods. And for me personally, what I think is more advantageous is a system of mutual aid and welfare programs instead of a complete aversion to money. Because using money, you can coordinate like thousands or millions of people nearly automatically. I know the invisible hand isn't real, it's all an invisible hand, but it's people getting the same information and being able to make decisions based on that information with no need for central planning. Although, of course, there is the need for the central planner to set up the system of money in the first place, because money does not exist without the social consensus that money exists. I know this argument, I know this flaw, that you can't have completely decentralized money, but you can get close to it, and that's the part that fucking matters.